Hello, my friends. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. It helps more than you know. I never should have taken the last-minute booking at the Ravenwood Hotel, but it was late, I was exhausted, and the promise of a luxurious stay in the heart of the mountains seemed like the perfect escape from my life. I didn't realize that the word luxurious might have been a polite euphemism for abandoned and haunted. The drive there was long, winding through fog-heavy pine forests that seemed to close in around my car. By the time I arrived, the sun had fully set, leaving only the cold silver light of a waning moon. The hotel loomed in front of me like a shadow carved from stone. Its sign flickered weakly. Ravenwood Hotel. Welcome. The flicker made it seem almost alive, like it was breathing. I parked in front and stepped out, immediately regretting leaving the warmth of my car. The air was sharp, cold enough to bite through my jacket, and the silence of the surrounding forest was unsettling. No birds, no insects, no wind, just an eerie stillness. Pushing open the front doors, I was greeted by the faint smell of damp wood and old carpet. The lobby was dimly lit, antique chandeliers swaying slightly as if stirred by some unseen breeze. A thick layer of dust coated the reception desk. Behind it, an old man with pale, almost translucent skin looked up from a ledger. His eyes were milky, unfocused, and yet they seemed to see me completely. "Welcome," he croaked. His voice was dry, like leaves crumbling in autumn. "Room 217, key." I took the key hesitantly. The lobby clock ticked loudly, echoing in the empty room. "Thank you," I muttered. I felt an inexplicable chill as I moved toward the elevator, its brass doors reflecting my nervous expression. The elevator ride was slow, almost glacial. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out entirely, leaving me in complete darkness. My heart raced. A soft whisper came from somewhere above, just a faint murmur of words I couldn't catch. When the lights returned, I was at the second floor. Room 217. I hesitated at the door. The key turned with difficulty, the lock protesting. Inside, the room was decorated in Victorian style. Dark wallpaper, heavy curtains, and a massive bed that looked like it had been slept in decades ago. Everything felt wrong. The shadows in the corners were too deep, and the air smelled faintly of decay. I set my bag down and tried to shake off the feeling. After all, it was just an old hotel. Maybe the reviews online hadn't lied completely. I locked the door, pulled the curtains aside, and peered out at the fog-shrouded grounds. The forest pressed close, black and menacing, as if it were waiting for me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind, made my imagination spiral. Around 2 a.m., I heard the first real sound, a soft tapping at the door. I froze. It came again, deliberate and rhythmic. My heart pounded as I approached. "Hello?" I whispered. No answer. I opened the door a crack. The hallway was empty, the flickering lights casting long, wavering shadows. I stepped out, the carpet damp beneath my feet. The tapping continued, but now it wasn't at my door. It was coming from the end of the hall. I followed it cautiously, each step heavier than the last. The hallway stretched unnaturally, longer than it should have been. At the end of the hall was another door, unmarked. The tapping stopped when I reached it. I stared at the doorknob. It felt ice cold under my hand. Then the door swung open on its own. Darkness inside seemed to swallow the dim light from the hall. A smell of rot and wet earth spilled out, making me gag. "Hello?" My voice trembled. The darkness answered with a low, wet gurgle, like something rising from the depths. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my curiosity, my foolish curiosity, pushed me forward. Inside, the room was empty, except for a large, cracked mirror that leaned against the far wall. But the reflection, it wasn't mine. The face in the mirror was pale, hollow-eyed, with a grin that stretched too wide, a grin that whispered, "You shouldn't have come." I stumbled back. The door slammed shut behind me with a deafening crash. Panic surged. I tried the handle, locked. The mirror's surface rippled and the figure stepped out. Not a reflection. A real, breathing figure, wet-looking, dripping with something dark and sticky. I ran to the window and tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The figure followed, silent, gliding across the floor with impossible speed. My chest burned as I pounded on the glass, screaming. Then it spoke. My voice, my exact voice. "You belong here now." I screamed again and spun around. The figure was gone, but the mirror still rippled, showing dozens of my faces, all twisted in terror, all staring at me. I backed into the corner, trembling. And then I heard the whispers coming from everywhere and nowhere, calling my name, telling me things I didn't want to know. Secrets, lies, histories of guests who had checked in and never left. Time lost meaning. Minutes stretched into hours or days. The hotel seemed alive, shifting around me. Hallways twisted, doors appeared where none had existed. Every time I tried to leave, I found myself back at room 217, the mirror waiting, patient. I realized I wasn't the first to see this, and I wouldn't be the last. The old man at the desk was there again when I finally staggered into the lobby, though he hadn't moved from his seat. His eyes, milky and blind, glinted with knowing. "Room 217, he whispered. "They never leave. Only new guests arrive." I wanted to run. I had to run, but the exit doors slammed shut before I could reach them. A laughter, high-pitched, echoing, inhuman, filled the lobby. Shadows stretched from the corners, coiling around me. My limbs froze. My screams became part of the laughter. And then the world went black. When I woke, I was in room 217 again. The bed was neatly made, the curtains drawn. The mirror stood in the corner, unbroken, silent. The fog outside the window pressed close once more. I touched my face in the reflection and screamed. Another guest had checked in. The key to the hotel sat on the nightstand, engraved, Ravenwood, room 217. I never wanted to leave, but I knew I couldn't. The hotel had claimed me, just as it claimed everyone before me. I had become part of its endless looping nightmare. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, the old man smiled. Because at the Ravenwood Hotel, you never check out. I've always loved hotels. There's something intoxicating about stepping into a lobby that's not your own, about the temporary anonymity of a room that belongs to no one else but you. Or so I thought. It was late November when I drove up the winding road to the Hollow Creek Hotel. The GPS insisted it existed, but the deeper I went into the fog-choked forest, the more I wondered if it was a mistake. The hotel's neon sign flickered weakly through the mist. Hollow Creek Hotel. Welcome. Its glow was sickly, pale yellow, like a candle struggling to stay lit. I parked and stepped out, the cold hitting me instantly. The fog rolled around my ankles, thick and wet. I clutched my coat tighter and approached the entrance. The double doors creaked as I pushed them open, revealing a lobby frozen in time. Dust motes swirled in the weak light of the chandeliers, and the air smelled of mildew, old wood, and something metallic I couldn't place. A man sat behind the reception desk. He was older than I expected, maybe in his 70s, but his pale, almost waxy skin made him look far older. He didn't smile. His eyes, a milky gray, fixed on me with an unsettling intensity. "Room 314, he said without lifting his head. "Key." I hesitated. The lobby was empty except for him. No staff, no guests, not even a sound besides the distant hum of the heating system. Or was it something else? But the key was cold in my hand as I left the desk. The hallway to the elevator was narrow, lined with faded wallpaper, the colors of which had long since turned into indistinguishable shades of gray. The elevator doors were brass but tarnished, and when I pressed the button, they opened slowly with a groan that sounded almost alive. Inside, the elevator smelled of iron and damp earth. I pressed the button for the third floor, and the doors closed. The ride was slow, too slow. The floor indicator barely moved, even though the elevator made noises that sounded like scratching from the walls themselves. Then, the lights flickered out. I was plunged into darkness. My heart slammed. I pressed the emergency button, nothing. Just a low, almost imperceptible whisper brushing against my ear. "You're here now." When the lights returned, I was at the third floor, room 314. I swore I felt a breeze brush past me as I approached the door. The key fit with a stiff click, and I stepped inside. The room was everything I feared and more. Victorian furniture coated in dust, heavy curtains blocking the windows, and a mirror that leaned slightly to one side. At first glance, it was just a mirror. But then I caught movement. Not my movement. I was standing perfectly still, but shadows. Dark shapes stretching and twisting behind the glass. I shook my head, telling myself I was tired. I'd been driving for hours. I dropped my bag on the bed, which sagged in the middle as if it had been slept in by someone far heavier than me, or something else entirely. That night I couldn't sleep. Every floorboard creak, every groan of the old building sounded amplified in the silence. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard it. A soft tapping, not at the door, but at the mirror. I froze. Tap, tap, tap. My reflection stared back at me, pale and tired, but behind it, the shadow moved independently. My stomach twisted. I wanted to run, but my legs felt rooted to the floor. Then, the tapping stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. I dared to move closer to the mirror. And that's when I saw it. My reflection wasn't doing what I was doing. It grinned, its lips stretched too wide, eyes hollow and black, and it whispered in my own voice, "You shouldn't be here." I stumbled back, knocking over the nightstand. The mirror shimmered like water disturbed by a stone, and then it cracked, one long, jagged line splitting the glass as if something was trying to break through. I ran to the door. Locked. I banged on it. The old man's voice echoed from somewhere far away in the hotel. "No one leaves Hollow Creek." Fear surged through me, primal and raw. I tried the window. It was sealed shut. My phone had no signal. The hotel was alive, I realized. Every shadow was moving. The walls themselves seemed to shift, elongating the hallway behind me, twisting the exit further away. I thought I heard other people. Faint whispers in the hall, footsteps pacing just outside. But when I opened the door and looked, the corridor was empty, stretching endlessly. And every time I turned around, the mirror in the corner of the room reflected someone else standing behind me. At first, just a fleeting glimpse, then more solid, more real. I could hear it breathing now, a wet, ragged inhalation behind the mirror. I tried to smash it, but my hands passed through it like water. And then I realized they weren't reflections. They were past guests, trapped here, always part of the hotel now. Panic overtook me. I ran from room to room, trying doors, screaming, banging on walls. The hotel shifted around me. Corridors twisted into impossible angles. Stairs led to nowhere. And always, always the whisper, "You belong here now." Finally, I collapsed in a hallway, gasping. The floor beneath me seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Then I saw it. The lobby again, through a doorway that hadn't been there before. The old man sat behind the desk, smiling now, his eyes still milky but glinting with something sinister. "Room 314, he said. "We've been waiting for you." I tried to back away. The shadows crept toward me, crawling along the walls, across the ceiling, forming grotesque shapes that whispered in voices not my own. I ran, but wherever I ran, I always ended up back in that same hallway. And then the mirror appeared, upright now, the cracked edges gleaming in the dim light. Figures reached from it, hands, faces, shadows, pulling at me, drawing me in. I screamed, I fought, but it was no use. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the bed in room 314. The door was unlocked. The mirror reflected nothing but my own tired face. The fog outside pressed against the window. The key rested on the nightstand. Hollow Creek, room 314. Somewhere deep in the hotel, I heard the laughter of others, guests who had checked in and never left. I realized with a sinking, terrifying certainty that I would be next. The hotel had claimed me. I will tell you this story, but I cannot leave. If you ever see the Hollow Creek Hotel, don't drive up that winding road. Don't check in. Because once you enter, you'll never leave. The walls have ears, the floors have eyes, and the mirrors, they are waiting. Now, the hotel waits for the next guest. Ikta. I should have turned around the moment I saw the Ravencrest Hotel. The building rose from the fog like a black monolith, its Gothic architecture warped by years of neglect. I was tired, cold, and had been driving for almost 10 hours. But there was something about the way the sign flickered in and out. Ravencrest Hotel, vacancies, that made me hesitate. My GPS insisted this was my stop for the night. I shouldn't have argued with it. Parking my car in the cracked lot, I noticed the wind had fallen completely silent. No trees rustled, no birds called. Even the fog seemed to pause as I approached the entrance. The double doors groaned when I pushed them open, revealing a lobby frozen in a past century. The carpet was threadbare, dust coating the edges. Heavy, faded velvet curtains hung limply, their colors dulled to gray. Behind the desk sat a man who looked older than anyone should live to be. His skin was pallid, almost wax-like, and his eyes were pale gray, as if cataracts had eaten them alive. He didn't greet me. He simply extended a skeletal hand, and from it dangled a brass key. "Room 606, he said, his voice dry, like leaves breaking underfoot. I swallowed. Something about his gaze made me uneasy, but I nodded and took the key. The lobby was silent, except for the tick of a large wall clock that sounded impossibly loud. I turned toward the hallway leading to the elevator, and the smell hit me, a mix of damp wood, mildew, and something metallic that made my stomach churn. The elevator doors creaked open, revealing a cab lined with cracked mirrors. I stepped in, pressed the button for the 6th floor, and the doors closed behind me. The ride was slow, agonizingly so, each floor marked by a metallic groan that sounded like bones bending. Then, halfway up, the lights went out. I was enveloped in complete darkness. My heart hammered in my chest. I fumbled for my phone, but there was no signal. A soft whisper reached my ears, almost too faint to catch. "Don't leave." The lights returned. The doors opened onto a long, narrow hallway. The wallpaper was peeling, revealing dark stains underneath, almost like old blood. Room 606 waited at the very end, the door slightly ajar. I should have run when I saw it. I should have. But curiosity, or maybe stupidity, drove me forward. Inside, the room looked empty at first. A large canopy bed dominated the space, the sheets yellowed with age. Dust covered the furniture like a blanket. In the corner stood a full-length mirror, slightly tilted. At first glance, it was just a reflection of the room, until I saw movement. I froze. My reflection wasn't mimicking me. My reflection was smiling, and not in a friendly way. Its lips stretched too wide, revealing teeth too sharp to be human, and its eyes, hollow black pits, stared straight into mine. I stumbled back. The mirror rippled like water, and a cold, wet hand shot out, grasping for me. I slammed the door shut, fumbling to lock it, but the key wouldn't turn. The handle shook violently in my hand. Behind the door, I heard whispers, low and malicious, saying my name over and over. The hours, or was it minutes, passed like a fever dream. I tried everything, screaming, pounding on the door, even climbing out the window. The window refused to budge. The room felt alive, walls breathing, shadows stretching toward me. And the mirror. It wasn't just a mirror anymore. Faces appeared within it, dozens of them twisted in terror, their mouths open in silent screams. At one point, I thought I saw the old man from the lobby standing behind me in the reflection. But when I turned, the room was empty. Only the mirror remained, rippling, calling to me. I tried to sleep, convinced that daylight would save me. but I never slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I was awake in the same room, same cracked mirror, same suffocating air. The hotel had trapped me in a loop, feeding on my fear. Something broke through the mirror one night. A figure, wet, pale, and humanoid, but wrong in every way, stepped into the room. It moved unnaturally, its joints bending backward, its mouth opening wider than any human should. It whispered in my voice, "You can't leave." I ran for the door, throwing my body against it, but the hallway was gone. The walls twisted around me, forming corridors that weren't there before. Each door I tried opened to another room identical to mine. The mirror was always there, and the figure always behind it, smiling. I realized with horror that the hotel was alive. It was feeding. Each guest became part of it, trapped forever in its corridors, in its mirrors. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me, until I couldn't tell which voice was mine. Days, or maybe years, passed. I no longer knew. I wandered the hallways, always returning to room 606. The mirror's surface shimmered constantly, showing me faces of past guests, their expressions frozen in terror. Sometimes they tried to reach out, screaming silently. I wanted to scream back, but no sound escaped. And then, one day or night, the old man appeared in the hallway. His eyes, still pale and lifeless, glimmered as he smiled. "Room 606, he said softly. "You belong here now." I understood. I was no longer just a guest. I was part of the hotel now, part of the walls, the mirrors, the shadows. The hotel had claimed me, and it would never let me go. Somewhere deep in the corridors, new guests arrived. I watched them from the mirrors, their reflections perfect, until the hotel took them. I saw them screaming as they became part of the walls, the floors, the shadows, and I knew my voice would whisper to the next victim, "Don't leave. You belong here." Now, I wait. I wait for the next traveler seeking a warm bed, a roof over their head. And I smile behind the mirror, my teeth too sharp, my eyes hollow, ready to welcome them to room 606. Because the Ravencrest Hotel never forgets a guest. It never lets anyone leave. I had been driving for hours, the rain hammering against my windshield, the wipers barely keeping up. My GPS flickered and reassured me that I was only a few miles from the Blackmore Hotel, yet the forest seemed to grow thicker with each turn. The trees loomed over the narrow road, their branches scratching the roof of my car as if warning me to turn back. I didn't. I needed a room, a bed, some warmth. The hotel sign eventually emerged through the fog. Blackmore Hotel, vacancies. Its neon light buzzed weakly, casting strange shadows that danced across the wet asphalt. The moment I parked, a chill crawled over my skin. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just the cold, just exhaustion. The lobby doors creaked when I pushed them open. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of damp wood and old carpet. The chandeliers swayed slightly, though no wind stirred the still air. The floorboards groaned beneath my shoes, echoing through the cavernous space. Behind the reception desk sat an old man. Pale, almost translucent, he looked like he had been there for centuries. His eyes, milky gray, seemed to pierce right through me. "Room 412, he rasped, barely looking up from a ledger. "Key." I accepted the key with a nod. The lobby felt colder than outside. I didn't hear another guest, not a single sound, except the ticking of a massive grandfather clock in the corner. Something about it was off. The pendulum swung erratically, almost as if keeping time to a rhythm I couldn't hear. The elevator was old brass, the doors scratched and worn. As I rode to the 4th floor, the lights flickered. The reflection in the elevator walls seemed wrong. My face stretched in ways it shouldn't, my eyes darker than usual. I tried to ignore it. Room 412. I hesitated at the door, the key trembling in my hand. I opened it. The air was icy, my breath fogging immediately. The room looked normal at first glance. A large bed, antique furniture, faded curtains. But the shadows clung too tightly to the corners. The floor creaked under invisible weight, and the mirror in the corner didn't quite reflect reality. I set my bag down and tried to relax. I had a story to tell myself. It's just an old hotel, nothing more. But the moment I sat on the bed, I heard it, a soft tapping from the corner of the room. Tap, tap, tap. I turned toward the mirror. My reflection blinked, but it shouldn't have. I hadn't. My own eyes were wide, my skin pale, yet the figure in the mirror was smiling. Not a polite smile, a wrong smile. Its lips stretched too wide and its eyes were black voids. I stumbled back. The tapping stopped. Silence filled the room like thick water. I tried the door, locked. The key wouldn't turn. A whisper slithered across the room. You shouldn't be here. I tried to scream, but only a faint sound escaped. The shadows began to move. Slow at first, crawling along the floorboards like liquid, then faster, stretching up the walls. The temperature dropped, my breath visible, misting before me. I backed toward the bed, trying to collect my thoughts. The mirror began to ripple, like water disturbed by wind. Faces emerged, guests who had come before me, their eyes hollow, mouths open in silent screams. They reached toward me, fingers long and twisted. I stumbled, tripping over the rug, and the mirror cracked. A figure stepped through, not a reflection, wet, pale, humanoid, but wrong. Its movements were jerky, unnatural. You belong here, it hissed in my own voice. I ran to the window. It was sealed shut. The room itself shifted around me. Hallways stretched into infinity. Doors appeared where none should exist. I tried to open them. Each led to another identical room, another mirror, another version of me staring back in horror. Hours or days passed. I don't know. Time had no meaning. The hotel had claimed me, like it claimed everyone before me. I wandered through corridors that twisted impossibly, heard whispers that spoke secrets no living person should know. I saw the old man again, standing at the end of a hallway, smiling. His eyes, gray and dead, glinted with a terrible knowing. You are part of Blackmore now, he said softly. The hotel does not forget. I tried to scream. My voice joined the others, lost in the echoes. The mirrors multiplied. My reflection no longer matched me. It moved independently, grinning, beckoning, whispering. The shadows coiled around me, pulling me toward the center of the room, toward the mirrors, toward the unknown. I don't know how long I've been here. Maybe minutes, maybe years. The corridors loop endlessly. I can hear the new guests arrive, their footsteps, their laughter, their fear. I watch them through the mirrors. They always come alone, seeking rest, warmth, anonymity. And I whisper to them, my voice among many, don't leave, you belong here. The Blackmore Hotel never closes. It never forgets. And it will always claim its next guest. Sometimes in the quiet moments, I catch glimpses of myself in the mirrors, hollow eyes, twisted grin. And I know, one day I'll step out fully. Step into a guest, step into the hallway, step into a new soul. But for now, I wait. I wait in room 412 because the hotel will never let me leave. And if you ever see the Blackmore Hotel, don't check in. I had never been one for superstitions, but after the night I spent at the Blackwood Hotel, I started believing in them. It began as a simple road trip. I was exhausted after driving through the winding mountain roads for hours. And when I saw the Blackwood Hotel looming out of the mist, I thought I'd found my salvation. The hotel was an old Victorian building, perched at the edge of a cliff, with a faint light flickering from its grand lobby windows. Its sign read, Blackwood Hotel, vacancies. As soon as I stepped out of the car, a gust of icy wind hit me, carrying the faint smell of damp earth and decayed wood. The fog wrapped around the building like a living thing. I hesitated at the entrance, but exhaustion won. Pushing open the double doors, I entered a lobby frozen in time. Dust floated in the dim light of the chandeliers, the wooden floorboards groaning under my weight. Behind the reception desk sat an old man. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes were milky, as if he'd seen too much, or too little. He didn't greet me. He simply slid a brass key across the counter. "Room 13, he said, his voice raspy like dry leaves. I hesitated. The number made me uneasy. I shrugged it off. The lobby was otherwise silent, the walls echoing the ticking of a massive grandfather clock in the corner. The air smelled of old carpet, mold, and something metallic I couldn't place. The elevator was small, brass-lined, and clearly ancient. The doors groaned as they closed behind me. As it ascended, I noticed my reflection in the mirrored walls. At first, I thought I looked tired, but then I realized my reflection blinked slightly after I did. I froze, but the elevator continued its slow climb. Room 13. I took a deep breath before turning the key. The door opened to reveal a dimly lit room. The air was colder than the hallway, and the shadows in the corners seemed unnaturally deep. The bed was neatly made, though the sheets had an odd stiffness to them. A large, full-length mirror stood in the corner, slightly tilted. At first glance, it was ordinary, reflecting the room exactly as it was, until I saw the figure. It was me, but not. My reflection smiled, a slow, wrong grin that didn't match my expression. Its eyes were black, empty, and fixed on me. I stumbled back. The mirror rippled, as if water flowed beneath the glass and then cracked. A whisper slithered from the shadows. "You shouldn't be here." Panic surged through me. I ran to the door, yanking at the handle, locked. I tried the window, sealed shut. My phone had no signal. I was trapped. The shadows began to move, first along the edges of the room, then creeping toward me. I backed into a corner, heart hammering, as they stretched like living smoke. The mirror's surface shimmered, revealing not one reflection, but dozens. Faces of previous guests, their eyes hollow, mouths open in silent screams, stared back at me. Then the figure stepped out. Not a reflection. A pale, wet-looking humanoid with limbs bent impossibly and a mouth stretched wide. It moved silently toward me. Its lips formed words in my own voice. "You belong here now." I ran, trying doors that weren't there before. The hallway twisted and elongated, impossible architecture bending reality. Every time I thought I found the exit, I ended up back at room 13. Hours passed, or was it days? Time seemed meaningless. The whispers grew louder, filling my mind, telling me things no human should know. Secrets about the hotel, about guests who had checked in and never left. I realized then, the Blackwood Hotel was alive. It fed on fear, and I was its next meal. I tried to hide, under the bed, in the wardrobe, behind curtains. The figure found me every time. Its face reflected my own terror, and it whispered constantly, "You cannot leave." The old man appeared again, this time standing at the end of a hallway that hadn't existed before. His eyes were empty, but he smiled. "You're part of the hotel now," he said softly. "Room 13 claims all who enter." I screamed. The sound echoed, joined by countless others, guests trapped in mirrors, walls, floors. I tried to fight, but the shadows wrapped around me, dragging me toward the mirror. I saw my reflection smiling, grinning at me with teeth far too sharp, eyes hollow. And then, the world went black. When I woke, I was in room 13. Everything seemed normal, except the key sat on the nightstand, engraved, Blackwood, room 13. The fog pressed against the windows. The whispers began again. New guests had arrived. I watched them through the mirrors. They laughed, unaware of the danger. I whispered to them in my own voice, "Don't leave. You belong here." Because the Blackwood Hotel never forgets. It never lets anyone go. Now, I wait, and room 13 waits with me. The mirrors shimmer, the shadows stretch, and the next guest approaches. If you're still here, you're brave. Support the channel with a like, comment, and subscription.